Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sambuddhassa. Good afternoon, everyone. I just came from the hospital, and Paniwadi was admitted yesterday afternoon. She was feeling great Sunday and Monday, and yesterday afternoon she had what she has is a recurring seizure. But yesterday was a bigger one than we're used to. And it seemed to have affected more of her body. So it was unclear what was really happening. Was it a stroke or was it a seizure? So we took her in and they ran the tests. They did a number of things, including a CAT scan with dye that they put in, and there was no evidence of a stroke. So that's the good news. So now the great news is that she's right where she needs to be, getting the tests that she needs to have done with all sorts of wonderful bodhisattvas around her. And I was with her until last evening about 10, 11. Oh gosh, I got back here about 12. And then I was back with her this morning around 6. I was at the hospital. And they gave her some medication to just really relax her body and get her out of that seizure place. And she, I sat there for 2.5 hours. The doctors came in, they did rounds. It was great information for me to listen to them and to watch them do the neurological tests. And after they left, she kind of woke up from the medication that she got last evening and sat up and was hungry and ate some breakfast. And I said, we're going to do Dharma today. And so she proceeded to give me a bit of instruction on what to do today. So I thought, here we go. We're kind of coming back. And the nurse came in and took some vitals. And right after that, she went back down again pretty hard. So they are doing an MRI today, and they're doing some other tests. And the blood work is coming back looking good. So we're looking for all sorts of things, and that's really good news. It's really good news. So what we're going to do today, since last week she introduced Thus Have I Seen. Has anybody received the book? Okay, you got the book. Okay. Okay. So from this point on, I'm going to encourage you to bring them so that we can look at them. But for today, because I'm not even sure if anybody's online that has the book, we're going to read the first part like it's a discourse. And we're going to stop and talk about it. And I'm not talking, we're talking. We're going to talk about what we hear. And Santi is going to help me with that since I'm in a tired voice today. So that's where we'll start. And we'll carry on. She was real clear about her instructions to me that I will give to you. So, so that's where we're at. So I will ask that we just keep her in our thoughts and prayers, that the doctors will do what they need to do to give her the support. And as I mentioned a few weeks ago when I talked about the Bodhisattva path that we are doing, I watched them all evening, yesterday afternoon, evening, and this morning. And this nurse that's working with her today is fabulous. I just really enjoyed her and caretaking of me, caretaking of her. And it's just been really wonderful. So we do have 2 extra books if anybody wants to look at them today. I'm going to introduce the message that she gave me, which is, and these are my words, of course, don't wait. Don't just read this book or any other book and just read it. Find yourself as you read this book. Find where you land in this book. Look for it. Find what resonates with you and sit with that and be with it, not just for the moment, but for the week, the day, the week, the month, as we move through this book. Okay. Notice what comes up for you, and this is me talking. But when you read something that feels outside your comfort zone or outside of what's familiar to you, or it's just questioning, it's okay, question, wonder, but feel it inside. Notice what comes up and what that means to you. And is it familiar to you? Is that feeling familiar to you? And if it is, where else does it show up? When does it come up for you? What's going on? So we're going to start. And as I said, I'm not going to just read for an hour. We're going to read and stop and read and stop. And if you hear something as we go along that you'd like to talk about, let's stop. Okay. We're not on a race here. And we can just take this in and see, this is written by Rinpoche, Master Zizi, who is our teacher through Panyawadi, and who was a Rinpoche and disciple of Buddha Master. So the preface goes at the beginning here with this. I want this book to be first a description of what I have seen and heard while following my Buddha master, H.H. Dorje Chang Buddha III. I will tell the stories, the miracles, the practices, the steps forward and back, warts and all. Warts and all. So it's revealing, and we can't really be true outside of ourselves if we're not true, and notice our own warts, where we stumble, where we struggle. It includes my aspirations, the aspirations the Buddha Master has for me, and my resistance. Here's another gem. When do we feel resistance? What does that look like for you? What do you notice when it shows up? How does it land on you? And then where do you go with it? And most importantly, it includes an introduction to the Buddha Dharma, brought to this world by my Buddha Master. I must offer an important caveat. It does not attempt to discuss the entire body of the Dharma imparted by H.H. Dorje Chang Buddha III. It is only about the part that this humble student is aware of, as I do not read or understand Chinese. I believe it does offer an overview of what is known to English speakers, and I hope it can help you know how to learn from the Buddha and realize that you too can and will become a Buddha. Second, I want to share what I think all of this means, what I have learned or understand from all this. I'm sure there are many errors in this book, so many that I cannot even ask my Buddha Master to critique or approve it. However, I believe and hope that it will be useful to others who will, I hope, soon have the access to more of the Buddha's teachings and can make their own evaluation. There are many Dharma teachings available in Chinese by my Buddha Master, but not many English translations of the books and recorded discourses have yet been published. The karmic conditions have not yet matured, but the time is near. And as you know, Venerable has received a lot of the discourses that she she alone can read, and has begun that process. So we're getting them quite frequently now. Late in 2019, while leading a Dharma class in San Diego on a draft translation of the book Learning from Buddha, it became clear to me how exquisitely all varied teachings given by my Buddha master that I know of fit together and supported one another. It was like solving a giant puzzle. I do not yet have all the pieces and don't fully understand some of the pieces I do have, but I had the overall vision of how the teachings we do have complemented each other. It is then that I became determined to share that vision with whomever I could. I want to be clear that I'm not qualified to explain or teach the correct Buddha Dharma that can enable you to become enlightened. However, what I can do and want to do in this book is introduce you to that Dharma and share what I have seen and understand about the Dharma so that you can gain access to the wonders and joy of what the Buddhas teach. I can also transmit some of the Dharmas you need to start on this path. I started with a sort of curriculum in my head with classes at the temporary site of Zhuangfu Holy Heavenly Lake Dharma Center in Hesperia, California. There were some good old students finding ways to participate and some eager new students who seemed to have good karmic roots for learning the Dharma. Then COVID-19 hit and the classes had to stop. Only they didn't, they grew. We started holding large weekly international virtual classes via Zoom on Sunday afternoons and held smaller, more intimate Saturday morning open mic-like sessions to further discuss what we were learning and anything else that came up. The Dharma came alive. I wrote this book in the hope that by sharing my unique experiences, I can help make the Dharma come alive for others and that they will be motivated to learn and follow the Dharma, to find joy and a good life, and ultimately become enlightened beings. From my experience with these online classes and creating a virtual international temple online with students from all over the world joining us to chant and sing our praises to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, and to sit together in both silent meditation and to reflect on what we have learned from the Buddha, I realized that there was much more I could and should do. This book is part of that effort. I had for the past few years become quite frustrated, even despondent over my own Dharma practice, my lack of progress, and my inability to bring people to the Dharma. It started when we lost the ability to provide recordings of preliminary translations of the Buddha Master's Dharma discourses to those wanting to start Dharma listening centers. True, they could still come to my temple in Sanger, California, and I could read them these draft translations. But Sanger is a long way from just about anywhere, and most of the students did not have the time or the resources or priorities to take the time to come to Sanger to do that. A few did, and they progressed, but most did not. Besides, they needed Dharma discourses and translations of the basic text to be able to study and practice on their own and develop their own Dharma centers and bring people to the Dharma. I know I make mistakes and alienated students as well, for which I'm truly sorry. Santi, can you read the next chapter there? Not chapter, but the next paragraph. I'll keep reading until you can get that. Even when I was able to have preliminary translations of the amazing, supreme, and unsurpassable Mahamudra of liberation and the profound imparting the absolute truth through the Heart Sutra at the temple, it only attracted a very few to my temple to hear or read them. The ones who came and were able to hear and read even preliminary translations were thrilled, and some became quite accomplished. I can see how their practice has prospered as a result, but they were few in number. I knew others who I thought would also benefit, but they simply could or would not come to Sangha. The 7 Dharma seminars discussed later generated some interest, as did the Zhuangfa 5 Vidyas University, but nothing sustainable. Again, we needed authorized translations of the discourses and the Dharma text, but what could we do until that happened? What can those of us who do not and probably will never be able to understand or read Chinese do? What can I share of my experiences that might be helpful? Many of these stories and events I have reported before on the temple website and more recently in my blog, Thus Have I Seen, Heard. That was really the beginning of this book, but some I have not shared before. Still, they were merely random news articles. I wanted to publish these events in a hopefully more coherent format that would be more helpful to others. And that's really a place of where we are, of starting really from the beginning, to really do the preliminary before the preliminaries. And what a wonderful way to be able to step in to kind of read where this all began, where it started, and to be introduced to the Buddha Master in a way from someone who truly began from the beginning with him when he was still a Dharma king. I'm at the Phoenix and the Chicken. Recently, 2019, the Buddha Master gave me a scathing Phoenix and Chicken discourse when I went to him for advice. I tend to think pigeon would have been a better metaphor for me than chicken, but I finally got the idea. My translator was laughing so hard when he explained what the Buddha Master had just said that I could barely hear what he was saying. I had the distinct feeling that it was much better in Chinese, or at least more colorful. I often suspected that there was some editing on the part of the translators, but in all fairness, I think they probably also edited my questions to the Buddha Master to make them more respectful and appropriate. To be honest, I do not believe that the Buddha Master needed any translation to understand my intent. Many times he understands my situation before I even think it, let alone understand it. Other disciples have had that experience as well. Sometimes I have received instruction and guidance that was outside of the restraints of language. In essence, His Holiness sees me as a phoenix with all its grandeur, fancy plumage, and abilities, whereas I still see myself as a pigeon or a chicken. I guess both of the ordinary birds are appropriate, if not very flattering. I certainly share undesirable qualities attributed to both stupidity, greed, and lack of courage or timidity. I know chickens don't really lack courage, but we do use that expression. In fact, chickens can be vicious cannibals and deadly fighters. The Buddha Master sees me as the holy person I could be, and I, unfortunately, resist rising to that level, even though he has tried so hard to teach me and give me the necessary initiations and empowerments. You ready? So I want to just take a second to think about that. Here is someone that has been with Buddha Master among many other teachers in many other traditions, has studied and traveled journeys with these folks and continues to see herself in that vein. And so I ask ourselves, what about us? How do we see ourselves? What are our limiting what are the limiting ways that we get in our own way, that we trip over ourselves, that we trip over others and not see what it is that is really there, the true Buddha nature. And if we can get to the place that's really there, then we can get deeper and deeper into experiencing that. I want to just stop for a second. And again, I keep thinking of the bodhisattvas and the ones I experienced today. And certainly my monastic brothers and sisters who sat for hours in the hospital waiting room as I was trying to text where we were and what was going on. And then together we went and got some dinner and sat and just supported each other. And that's what the Sangha does. We support each other in lots of different ways. And that truly is the Bodhisattva path, which if we go back to read all the things that she sees herself, or did at least in the beginning, that's what got in her way. And that's what can get in our way. But if we see where we step out, if we see where we engage in the world with an open mind and an open heart, we too can progress to a phoenix. We too can progress as a phoenix. Okay.
The same thing happened when I was recognized as a Rinpoche. Can you hear me? Okay, I'll read loud. I can read loud. The same thing happened when I was recognized as a Rinpoche. I still remember the argument before his dais when I fiercely fought having my photo installed at Hua Zhang Si, our temple in San Francisco, as an elder or something like that. Suddenly, with no warning, one of the Buddha's Dharma instruments on his dais, I think it was his bell, started flying ever so deliberately across the room on its own volition. The Buddha master had not touched it. It must have been a Dharma protector making a statement. I shut up then, and the portrait was installed.
And I'd like to just pause there for a second about the Dharma protector, which it's noted down below. Dharma protectors are beings from another realm who guard the sacred teachings and those who follow them. I will describe them later. So again, it's an opportunity for us to step into otherworldly beings that are here. And certainly there's evidence of them over and over again here and in other places. When Panyadeepa passed and we saw him out as he took his body away, Panyawati was taking it, the clouds parted. As they drove away, she took photos. And in that photo, if you look really closely at the sky, there's a Dharma protector or a being. It was remarkable. So again, if we can just begin, if we feel kind of stuck or stiff or resistant, just kind of try to open a little bit and a little bit more and a little bit more to the possibility that we're not alone here and that we can get support, even if it's not in the physical realm with my people I just turn to, but somewhere else. And we've done that for those of us in churches growing up. We pray to the God, to Christ, or wherever we learned as youngsters. So there is that element of knowing. And I really encourage us to keep on that path and keep opening up to the possibilities that we too can be guided in many, many ways by the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas.
I had not wanted to be a Rinpoche. I did not think I knew enough or was virtuous enough to be one. I considered myself an aspirational Rinpoche, and that was probably true. It was the Phoenix chicken syndrome again. I have struggled with this ever since I started following the Buddha master. I finally accepted the Rinpoche role, realizing that I could probably help more people in that role than being at a lesser status. Could it be that anyone with the karmic affinity to seriously follow the Buddha master has enough virtue and merit from past lives to be a reincarnated Lama, no matter what they knew or knew or how virtuous they were in this life? Maybe. I also reflected on an important teaching from the Buddha master on the role of faith in esoteric Buddhism, whereby you had to have faith not only in the Buddha and the Dharma, but also in yourself that you too could become a Buddha. Divine pride or arrogance is a part of some tantric practice. This is not just what you do on your cushion.
Let's just take that in. This is not what you do on the cushion. You barely get there on the cushion. It's stepping out. It's stepping out. And I'm stopping here because I want us to read this book like this. to read it and then pause and really think about what does that mean? And how do I take that in? Or do I take that in? Right? It says, but also in yourself that you too could become a Buddha. Divine pride or arrogance is part of some tantric practices. This is not just what you do on your cushion. And I think there was a dark side to my rejecting the high status positions. It wasn't all modesty or humility. There was a very real fear that I would like it. I did not need anything more to be attached to. I often joked about this, but on my part, it was pure gallows humor. I had laughed when the Buddha told me I would have assistance with parasols, but I found the idea very unlikely and ridiculous. However, when it happened, it wasn't all bad.
Can I say something to
Yes,
that?
please.
As I read this, I'm seeing myself, right? And the moments that I don't think I'm capable of something, you know. There's been a few times here recently where in my mind, I'm not capable yet of something, but Venerable will ask me. And as soon as she asks me, that thought has to go away. Like I don't even question it because I have so much faith in my teacher. And I have faith that she can see more in me than I can see in myself. She can see me far past where I can see myself. And so in those moments, she asks something, my mind wants to go, but I'm not ready, you know. That's the first thing my mind wants to do. But if I have faith in my teacher, if I have faith in this path, that there is, if I have the true Dharmakaya within me, if someone is seeing that there is part of that is ready to be shown, that I don't realize is ready to be shown, if the Dharmakaya is within me, then I should probably investigate that. I should probably try that. I should probably trust that. And so reading this is awesome to hear. You know, I'm like, oh yeah, me too. I understand what that feels like. So I just wanted to share that.
Anybody else have comments or? Yeah.
I've never heard of divine pride. I don't know that term, divine pride, and it doesn't, or arrogance. Certainly I know what arrogance is, but are they equivalent?
That's a good question. I'm not familiar with it as either, and that will be something that we'll circle back to with Venerable around that. So raise the question again, Nancy. Yeah, Suka. 1 second.
One of the things that we say in Sumal is that I am a bodhisattva of the causal stage and must become one of great holiness in this lifetime. And I can say I believe I am a bodhisattva of the causal stage, which means I'm in training, but must become one of a great holiness in this lifetime. That's like a leap. I almost feel like it's sinful to say that because it's so far to achieve that. That's just a feeling I have when I say that.
And what would it be like for you to simply let it be so?
It seems egotistical.
And what would it be like if we took egotistical out, if we let the ego go?
It would just be. But I have hard time believing that in the time I have left, it doesn't make any difference if it's 15 years or 50 years. In the time that's left, that I could be considered holy. It just, so even saying that just feels like sacrilege.
Can you imagine that thinking of it as sacrilege is limiting?
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't know. I could be gone this afternoon. Right? I can't depend on thinking I've got 40 years or 30 years or 20 years or even today. But maybe if I really am serious and I really have mindful awareness of my everyday experience, morning, noon, and night, that I'm aware of it, that I see things. I saw the nurses today and the doctors, and I saw their work, and I saw that and how I could help them. And they turned to me and asked questions. And so then we became part of a team and we were working together. And that was amazing. And so if I could do that, and then the next thing, and the next thing, who's to say that it can't happen tomorrow or the next day? And who's to say you're not already holy? And what does holy mean anyhow? Right? So I think it's so important for us to truly just not effort in the way of grasping, but to really work the program here, to really keep stepping into the practice. And that's not the cushion. That's not sitting in the chair reading the book. It's taking, even if you do one paragraph at a time and saying, I'm going to live that out. When I was first learning the precepts way back for when I was in Zen, I was really struggled with precepts. And I went to the teacher, the Roshi, and he said, do this. Take one a day. Read it in the morning. And at the end of the day, read it again and see how you did. What was working and what isn't. And I've taken that when I was working and running programs in the schools. Look at where you start. Where do you want to go? Pause at noon, I would say to the teachers. And then at the end of the day, look at it. Say, how did I do? Where did I struggle and where did I rock it? And then at night, and just then let it go and begin again. But take it, even if it's one paragraph at a time, take it one paragraph at a time. Do the work. Let it become who you are. Let it run through your system.
Where did we leave off? Somewhere? Oh, the page is installed.
Yeah.
Aspirational cushion. Okay.
Yeah.
But it was not until I was discussing the supreme and unsurpassable Mahamudra of liberation during a retreat at the temple that I think I really understood what the Buddha master had been trying to teach me, and it shook me to my bone. All my being cute about being an aspirational Rinpoche was wrong. The Buddha master's analogy to the phoenix and chicken was spot on. As long as you were just aspiring to something, you were not really committed to being that thing. You still had doubts, and there was no room for doubt in this process. This is exactly what you do with your Yidam practice of becoming the Yidam. How could you succeed if you did not totally believe you could do so?
So again, I want to stop there because this kind of speaks to what you're saying, right? And I think speaks to all of us to some degree or another. I mean, it really just, if all we did is read that and what it took for her, years and years of study and practice, and at that moment, and we don't know when that moment will come, or the next, or the next. I had a conversation with Panyawati on Thursday, and she gave me some guidance and instruction. We were driving somewhere, and I wasn't quite sure what it really meant, but I decided it wasn't worth me continuing the conversation. That was mine to sit with and see where it would show up and what it meant. And I sat with it and I sat with it. And it was right there, listening to her words. And then the Dharma talk happened on Sunday. Boom, straight on. And I got this big smile on my face because I got it. It was right there. It was right there. And that can happen to every single one of us, and will and does, I'm sure, to just be open, be aware, and notice what the words and where it fits for you, how it fits for you, when it fits for you, and keep with it. Keep with it.
Can I say something?
Yes.
As you were talking, I got this image of how we put so much attention on, I'm getting this like tightening image, and that represents our knowing or our need to know something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we miss out on is so much of this path, like a large part of it is experiential, large part of it is faith until you experience it.
Mm. Beautiful.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
But we get so caught in this part of it that we need to know, that we miss out on the space that has to be created in order to even know the thing. Because we want to know the thing before we go any further. And that limits us, and it keeps us from attaining what we could really attain in this lifetime, no matter how long we have. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what it is. Certainly at the hospital, I want to know, and I want to know now. And the truth is that it's going to take some time to figure this thing out. And they're doing a lot of work to do that. Or I want to know, the question to her was, what role that I had on Thursday, what role do you see me having? And then instead of saying, well, she did say something that I'm not going to repeat right now, but she gave me some guidance about where I could go next, the next step. And I realized, 25 years of Buddhist study and practice, it was the next step. It's never over. It's the next step. And if we stay open and learning and growing, it's the next step. And sometimes it could be the teacher telling us, and sometimes it could be my brother Sangha member, or the grocery store clerk, or the nurse. We get these teachings every single day, everywhere. And I do think our growing up years of wanting something, striving to become something, striving to have something, is limiting us in our ability to be present with what we have and know this is the next step. I'm ready for the next step.
You had to take seriously and believe the 4 great Mahayana vows, even though no ordinary person could possibly accomplish them. These were not vows for the chicken-hearted. These are phoenix-level vows.
So before we read them, I want us, to those that you have a book, I'm going to ask Santi to read it, and then I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to ask those of us that have the book to read them. Okay, so go ahead.
Defilements are countless. I vow to put an end to them. Dharma methods are limitless. I vow to learn them. Living beings are innumerable. I vow to save them. Buddhahood is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it.
Defilements are countless. I vow to put an end to them. Dharma methods are limitless. I vow to learn them. Living beings are innumerable. I vow to save them. Buddhahood is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. And all together, defilements are countless. I vow to put an end to them. Dharma methods are limitless. I vow to learn them. Living beings are innumerable. I vow to save them. Buddhahood is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. I vow, I step into, I'm going to work at this. I'm going to work at this. I used to tell the kids, they'd say, I'll try. And I would say to them, there's no trying. There's either doing or not doing. Now, I'm not suggesting that any one of us are going to save all living beings. But you know about the little girl that was throwing the starfish in the ocean? And the man came up and said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I'm saving the starfish." And he said, "You can't, they were all over the beach. You can't save all of them." And she said, "Well, I can save this one. I can save this one." And so as we feel like I can't, because I can step each day into this. I can put an end to defilements this moment and the next and the next. And the more aware I become, the more I can do that. I vow I will work at this. Dharma methods are limitless. We're experiencing that here. For those of you that have been around for a while, we have stepped through many different methods. And it's been incredible. It's gotten us to where we are today. Living beings are innumerable. Living beings, not just human beings, living beings. I vow to save them. To live around this place, someone's always got a glass or something to save, or moving a worm into the grass, or moving yesterday in the retreat kitchen, there was a hornet. And sister was like, "Oh my God, a hornet." But then she got a glass and she got it down and and it was scary. I don't think you really like hornets very well. Didn't you get stung by one? Yes. So here she is, brave as a Care Bear, and got a paper towel and got it underneath and released it. You were brave. And it continues to live as long as it's able. Now we could have just, boy, that would have been painful, right? But we do that. All living beings, we get to help. We get to help. Buddhahood is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. I vow to realize it. There is one more confessional statement I want to make. Isn't it wonderful that she confesses all these things? Many years ago, I wanted to establish a website to tell the world about my Buddha master and guru and explain how a Buddha had incarnated into this world to make the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha more relevant to our troubled times and to correct mistranslations and errors that have crept into the original teachings over the millennia. This Buddha, an incarnation of Dorje Chain Buddha, the teacher of Shakyamuni Buddha, in another time and place, was living in America, and I wanted other Americans to know about it. I requested guidance on how I should do this and received an image of a sun and moon riding on clouds that contained 7 rainbow-colored gems. The meaning of this image was explained to me, and although I found it very interesting and used it on my website for years, I never fully understood its significance or what I should do with it. I never fully, at that time. Does that mean she just discarded it? It kept being present with her. Kept being present to her. Okay.
When I redesigned my website, I dropped the logo and had not given it much thought until I started to write this book. Just as I had the flash of recognition of how all the bits and pieces of Dharma I had received over the years fit together, I was also able to see how beautiful and important the symbolism of this logo was and how useful it was to telling my story. With this background, I began the journey and will hopefully be able to end with the synthesis of what happened and what other non-Chinese speakers need to be able to find and practice the true Buddha Dharma that can enable them to become enlightened.
So Venerable wanted us to read this book as a way of showing us a journey that we too are embarking on, and to see some of the similarities and for sure some of the differences for us, but they're there. They're there. And the best we can do with this book, the very minimum amount we can do is read. the best we can do is really take in what she has to say, what struggles she had, what challenges she had, what awarenesses she had, and not say, oh, that's her, not me. Well, find those places. Look at those places. Just like you, just like her, just like me. Any comments at this point? That was the preface. We haven't entered into the introduction, which is lengthy. Comments about what you've heard so far?
So
Or it resonates with you? Yes, Jim, hi.
hi. I don't know if I can articulate this very well at this point, but these passages around divine arrogance, which I guess we'll get some clarification on what that is, are messing with my head. It's a good thing. I guess when I think of living into our phoenix nature, it occurs to me that the only categories that most of us have to place that in have to do with egotism, ego inflation, conceit, and so forth. So I guess to live in humility and modesty about that is a good thing, but it's also leading me to recognize that there can be a false modesty or a false humility about that. That there might be, that maybe that what we're being invited to do is really feel our way into that phoenix identity, if you could call it that, and not, as it says in the Bible, hide our light under a bushel. But I think living that is something very, in fact, it might even be considered from that frame of mind sacrilegious not to recognize that in ourselves. That's all.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. The comments really broaden what we're looking at here. And again, I haven't gotten far enough along to be able to even begin to know that. But I think as we read that, I think it's fair to be able to say, what might that mean? What could that mean? Right or wrong, right? And I really appreciate, Jim, you stepping in and looking at that in a way that can maybe further help us look at our own experiences here. Other comments about what we've read in this preface?
I'm just feeling some gratitude right now for Master Zaji and the work that she's done to be able to bring these teachings to Westerners. Because that was an essential link for us, essential link. I think about without her, we don't know when and how these corrections that Buddha Master is offering would have gotten to us. And so I'm just feeling a lot of gratitude for that right now. Yeah.
She didn't stop in her search. From even before, and as you read on, you'll read about her journey, her spiritual journey. And she knew there was something. She listened to that something in her, even as a child, and followed that, and followed that, and followed that. And in so many ways for me, that when I read that initially, her journey, that was my journey. We went to the same church, not literally, but, and I too wanted to be a minister. in a day and a time that women couldn't. I too was exploring various faith traditions. And I learned a lot, but there was something else and something else. And to read this book and understand the depth and breadth of her journey gives me a whole lot of just gratitude, but an opportunity to say, okay, like her, I too can do this. And what an incredible opportunity for us to not just have her book, but now to be getting these discourses and to be able to be studying them together as a Sangha and talk with each other about this, about what we're learning and what's showing up. That's walking it out. That is cultivating. That is cultivating. Yeah.
Something stood out for while reading is about the faith. It's been almost 15 years that I started to be interested in. Now, when I look back, I was interested in some spiritual direction. And then, you read about it, you meditate, and you do this, you do yoga, all sorts of things. And this year, I'm beginning to feel this is the path that is absolutely important to, understand the suffering and away from suffering, whatever. I can't see anything else would do it because I'm not taking drugs or anything else. So I started the Kundalini yoga. I added that about a month ago. And then I'm beginning to see that something in our body, something in our system, not through the brain, that it reaches, whether through the meditation or I'm doing the Iyengar yoga or whatever, it's just that sitting in front of a waterfall, somewhere I hit some space that it feels like, oh, this existence here, I wish I stay there. Then it was just momentary. And then I go on to something else. And, so just about a week ago, I was thinking, I think I need a faith. I have to really, so I remember 50 years ago, I met a minister. He was trying to, tell me that I should be a Christian. I said, no, I can't trust all these things. I read, Bibles, I can't trust it. And he said to me, just trust. Just surrender and trust and see what happens to you. I said, no, I'm a scientist. I can't do that. I have to, know it. So this very analytical mind and, research minded. But then now I realize we reach to the point, all this knowledge and, all these books, nothing really, crossed that bridge. Mm-hmm. And I felt like now, at least the doubting and reading and all the struggling and all of that, I think I had a glimpse of something that only faith will take me. So Kundalini yoga, somehow, I just after, 1 hour, whatever, 2-3 hours, I'm in somewhere. All the troubles and everything that I thought about before dropped without letting go myself intellectually. So now I thought, okay, I'm a body person. I got to work through the body to let all these things drop so that I could really have a faith
So the whole thing is about, at this point in my life, you gotta have a faith.
Yeah.
And then that's why this line
Mhm.
in a book about the faith, I thought that's what it is.
And that's the moment when you see or hear or experience something that you can look at and say, okay, now I can step further in. So as we get ready to close today, thank you, Walker, for that. I'm going to encourage us to, yes, read the book, but not just read the book, to be with the book, to be with the book, and offer us an opportunity to really look at how this dances out for me. Where are my doubting pieces and where are my striving pieces? And how is it that I can keep stepping in? How can I allow myself? Because that's really what it is. It's allowing ourselves to not get bogged down and just recognize, oh, there it is. There's that doubting piece. Oh, there's that judgment piece. And let it go and come back to wanting to learn more, to grow, and to honor yourself as the phoenix that you are. And when you feel yourself wanting to be that pigeon or the chicken, it's okay. Okay, but not now. I'm ready to move beyond that. I'm ready to move beyond that. Okay. I'm just going to ask us to sit here for just a minute and ask us to put Panyawadi in our place here, in our hearts, and ask us also to continue to bring those that were injured or killed in the shootings and all those who are suffering at multiple levels. Being in the hospital, I see that the hospital is filled with suffering. So let's take a minute. And may the merit of our practice, may the merit of our time together and these words serve as a way of providing light to those that we encounter every day. May those who are suffering find some relief by those of us who are there to help serve. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you, Santi. Yeah. Thank you, Basita, for helping.